Hi everyone, here's the Bookchemist once again, and a few weeks ago I posted a video where I proposed we embark, me and you people, on a journey back into the zone, back into the world of Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow, and unfortunately enough, the overwhelming majority of you were kinda interested in the idea. I loved it because the first comment was nope, and then the rest of the comments were all positive, so I guess we are going to read or reread Gravity's Rainbow together. The zone where we're going to go is a bizarre place, very disturbing, very troubling. Some people come back from it completely changed, some people come back from it totally disturbed and upset. Some people love it there and stay there for the rest of their lives, and some people are not at all affected by it. I visited it some years ago and I swore upon leaving it that I would never go there again. I literally swore I am not ever rereading this book. But then, after visiting the rest of the continent of Pynchonia and finding it very much to my taste, finding that I loved the place, I decided it was actually, well, time I went back into the zone. And the time of leaving is almost upon us, so it's time to get ready for the expedition. And today, first things first, I'm going to present you with this. Your expedition pack. You have a few weeks to put together yours. First thing that shouldn't be missing from your expedition pack is, wait for it, fucking Gravity's Rainbow. When it comes to editions, I do not have a strong opinion. My suggestion would be look online at a second-hand books websites like Awesome Books or World of Books and see if you can find a cheap edition, and it's highly likely that you'll be able to find a second-hand copy at a very cheap price. I actually have the 2013 vintage edition of Gravity's Rainbow, which I've been told is supposedly a very good one. It should be relatively typo-free. I do not have a strong opinion. The main problem with this one is that it, for whatever bizarre layout reason, it's 100 pages longer than most other editions, but I'll talk about that in later into the video. I do not have strong opinions about other editions, but keep in mind that the 2006 Deluxe Penguin edition of Gravity's Rainbow, which is the one with the Frank Miller cover, it has a black and white cover with the silhouette of a bomb and a black and white picture of a bomb field on it. Some printing of that edition contains some serious typos, and I'm going to put links in the description box to some Reddit threads when these typos are discussed. If you can avoid getting that specific edition, it's probably wiser, but if you have it at home already, don't panic, it's rather easy to overcome those typos. You're going to need a bookmark, obviously, but if you're hardcore about this reading project, you may want to note down on your edition where each section of the reading begins and ends, and I'll talk more about those sections later into the video. Next thing you're going to need is a happy picture. Gravity's Rainbow is a very disturbing book, and some passages in it are exceedingly graphic, but even beyond that, its reflections, some of its themes are really terribly bleak, and this is a book that deals with some of the darkest passages in human history and features some of the darkest, bleakest reflections I have encountered in fiction. Sometimes you're going to feel like taking a look at your happy picture to lift your spirits. Mine is a picture of a cat staring at pancakes. It cracks me up every time. The next one is a controversial point, but I suggest you carry with you some lighter reads, which may be anything really. It may be a light, enjoyable novel like Andrew Sean Greer's Less, which I reviewed recently. Absolute masterpiece, I'd say. It may be a comic book. It may be a role-playing manual. I've just started Volo's Guide to Monsters. It's amazing. Did you know that gnolls apparently are born when hyenas devour the victims of previous gnolls? The more you know. I know this is a controversial point for a couple of reasons. Some of you maybe do not like to read more than one book at the same time. I personally do not tend at least not to read more than one novel at the same time, but I'm pretty fine when it comes to reading a novel and a comic book in parallel, or a novel and a role-playing manual or something of the sort. The other thing I need absolutely to stress is that when I'm suggesting this, I'm not implying that Gravity's Rainbow is some kind of difficult, challenging, but important artistic or literary artifact, whereas these other things are more enjoyable but are inferior to it hierarchically. Far from it. I do not think at all that accessibility or the fact that a text is easy to read is a bad thing. If anything, in my book, that is a plus. As a PhD student who studies a lot of authors, but most notably Michael Chabon, I've met so many people who basically imply that Michael Chabon is not worthy of being studied because his novels are too enjoyable. But that's of course bullshit. So many of history's most important and seminal and talented writers are an absolute breeze to read, from Jane Austen to George Eliot to Thomas Hardy, Charles Dickens, Philip Roth, Alice Walker, so on and so forth. And we're not even touching upon the fact that you cannot really compare something like a comic book to a novel, because you are judging a medium using the criteria you use to judge a different medium. You get my meaning. I do believe though that for the same reason why you need your happy picture, you may sometimes feel like taking a break from Gravity's Rainbow's disturbing, cryptic narrative and to just read something that is refreshing and reminds you of why you're actually reading the book in the first place and why reading is so enjoyable. It's just such a nice cat. Food is important, sustenance for your body. Everything with bananas is going to be thematically appropriate, like this banana and peanut butter sandwich. Banana bread or banana pies are also portable and highly energetic. Finally, your imagination. Leave that shit at home. As I probably already mentioned, some passages in GR are very graphic, and it's best if they remain confined to the realm of sheer text and hypothesis and you don't try to visualize them too clearly, or you risk carrying them with you for the rest of your lives. Now let's talk about the schedule of this reading project, and notice that I'm hesitant about calling this a read-along because I don't want to imply or even suggest that you guys are supposed to follow this schedule strictly. Just read the book at whatever pace you find most comfortable, and if you feel like it, use the videos and the comments to the videos as a way of discussing the book and getting the most out of it, getting even more out of the reading experience. If you maybe at halfway through, if you feel like finishing the book in a couple of sittings rather than wait for the end of the project, absolutely do it. If you don't need me to say this, but if at whatever point you feel like dropping the book, that's also absolutely fine. I personally know people who couldn't finish Gravity's Rainbow on their first read, and then later reread it, loved it, and are currently writing papers on the novel. So about that schedule, the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of you guys preferred to read 100 pages every 2 weeks, and I think that makes absolute sense. So the first video in this project, I'm going to post it on my channel on the 6th of September, which is a Thursday, probably in the afternoon, European time. And it's going to be an introductory video to the novel. It's going to give you maybe some context, it's going to be an introduction to Gravity's Rainbow, and I'm going to recommend some tools, spoiler alert, stuff such as the Pynchon wikis, which you can use while you read the book. Or if, like me, you are rereading GR, I'm going to suggest a couple of secondary reads you may feel like reading alongside this reread, or before it or after it. I mentioned we are going to read 100 pages every 2 weeks, but that's just an indication. The novel is divided into 4 parts, each of which has more or less its different vibe. Especially, I would argue, the second half of the book is rather different from the first half, and we are going to use those sections to guide the reading. Basically, during the first 2 sections, we're going to read part 1. Part 2 is going to take up a single section, then we're going to spend 3 sections, which is basically a month and a half, on In the Zone, part 3, and then finally 2 extra sections for the Counterforce, part 4, which means that the project is going to end on the 27th of December, and you can enjoy the rest of the Christmas holidays with the knowledge that you've managed to defeat Gravity's Rainbow, and you've managed to read one of the most challenging books in recent literature. There's a list with the schedule of every reading section in the description box, and also on my Patreon page. I'm going to post something on my Patreon page about this stuff if you find that more handy. to bookmark in your browser. Gravity's Rainbow is divided into several small, let's call them sub-chapters, and each of these sections is not of course going to end in the middle of a sentence, but it's going to end at the ending of one of those sub-chapters, and you're going to find references to them in that list I mentioned. You are also going to find the page reference for this 2013 edition of the book, but check back in a couple of days because I'm also going to give you page references to other editions. I'm going to raid local libraries and take a look at those. Keep in mind that my edition 2013 is generally different from most others. But if you have a normal edition of GR that is roughly 800 pages long, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to identify and find where each one of those sections I mentioned begins and ends. And I hope all of this makes any sense. As mentioned in the announcement video, I'm going to post, at least at first, all of these videos on my Patreon page, but they are going to be public. They're not going to be beyond any type of paywall. The reason why I do that is that I don't want to flood the channel with videos on Gravity's Rainbow, as I'm assuming most of you guys, many of you guys, are not necessarily interested in those. Also, the first couple of videos, like the introductory one on the 6th of September and the first video about an actual section of the novel, those ones are going to be on my channel, so you don't miss those. I could discuss the structure of each video, but I think since this is the first time I attempt anything of the sort, that this thing is going to evolve according to basically how it goes, according to your feedback, so we'll see how that goes as we go along. What I want to say is that in each video I'm going to address the section I read in the previous 2 weeks, maybe point at a few significant passages from it, and also I'm going to use your comments from previous sections, your contributions to the general discussions. So your contributions, what I want to say is, they are going to shape the way the discussion proceeds extensively. Finally, last thing I'm going to address, some people asked if they should read anything else before they tackle Gravity's Rainbow, any other Pynchon novel to be prepared, and my immediate answer is no. Gravity's Rainbow is such a challenging, problematic, difficult novel that there is no way, I think, to prepare yourself for it. But if you want to have a taste of Pynchon's style, because you're not sure whether you're ready for Gravity's Rainbow, or because you want to know what you signed for, my main suggestion is always Inherent Vice. Inherent Vice is such an enjoyable novel, and once more, being an enjoyable novel doesn't mean it is Pynchon light, as it's sometimes called. In my opinion, it's as genius as any other Pynchon novel. The Crying of Lot 49 is the novel that's generally suggested as the first Pynchon novel people should read, mostly because it's very short. I'm not a huge fan. That too is ripe for a rereading though, but it's going to give you a taste of how challenging and cryptic Pynchon's writing can be, so it's not necessarily a bad choice. And finally, Dennis Poretsky at Intellectual Reads, a new exciting channel, accepted my reading invitation about Gravity's Rainbow, so that's awesome. And also he chose to read Slow Learner and also filmed a great review of it. Check it out. And Slow Learner, it's actually not a bad choice because it's also very short. It's a collection of juvenilia, early short stories by Thomas Pynchon. It should give you a taste of his early attempts at writing and of his style, especially in such stories as Entropy. And it also includes The Secret Integration, which is hands down one of the best short stories I've ever read. So you shouldn't go wrong if you pick that too as an introduction to Pynchon. And that's it. I think I'm as ready as I'm ever going to be to reread Gravity's Rainbow. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for your enthusiasm when it comes to this project. Let me know in the comments about what you think about the project in general, about your expedition packs, what you're going to put in yours. I'm probably not going to post too much in the next few days because it's time for a vacation. Also, I'm reading Foucault's Pendulum by Umberto Eco, which is very long, and I can't even begin to tell you how amazing this book is and how much I am loving every single sentence. But at the latest, I'm going to post that video about Gravity's Rainbow on the 6th of September. And I will see you in the next video, maybe that one. Bye guys.